Well, we got into playoff time, and playoff weekends often mean overtime weekends, and this was no different. Friday alone, 6 overtime games, 3 of them in Atlantic Hockey America. Just crazy. How about Atlantic Hockey America? AHA Mercyhurst versus Bentley went to 3 overtimes, and when the game I was broadcasting got done, I was watching some of that, and it was basically like playing half court basketball. Bentley just had the puck. Sometimes it would clear, you get a line change, and then Bentley would have it again. It extended. The weekend was an extension for Rick Godkin. Mercyhurst went down to Bentley the next day. And then Air Force and Robert Morris, 2 overtimes. And Derek, you had one of the best seats in the house for that one. Air Force pulled that one out 3-2, and that made that series go three games. But overtime in playoffs, this feels to me, I'm just going to say this feels like real hockey. None of the 3-on-3 exhibition stuff. You take the break, you resurface the ice, you play real hockey, and somehow overtime just seems to go on and on unless somebody scores early. But what about these overtime games, Jim? I mean, you must love it, except if you have a deadline.
I do love it, and even if I'm broadcasting it, you don't care. The hockey is usually so good, and yes, it does deteriorate as the game goes on and fatigue becomes a factor. But every chance you're just hanging on to the edge of your seat, whatever it may be. Use whatever cliche you want. I love playoff overtime. And Friday night, I was updating the USCHO front page. I was like, I couldn't go to bed, but that Bentley game, it ended before midnight, believe it or not, with triple overtime. I just, it's that time of year. This is what tells me it's playoff hockey. Long overtime games that are drawn out and go on all night. I know as a coach, Derek, you probably don't love it. You were involved in one, but I think it defines this time of year.
Well, that's why my voice is going to sound like it was carved up with a hacksaw because of 5 periods on Friday. I mean, it ended up, if it ends up going, it's not a one game. It really makes the weekend long. But I will tell you, that hockey game on Friday night that we went to double overtime, like you said, was exciting. It was enthusiastic. It was people on the edge of their seat. There were power plays. It's tense. It's hard. It's tense. It's hard on everybody. And then if you don't win it, you've got to find a way to recover really quickly. Like we got out, we left. Our game ended at 10:58, and we immediately had to start preparing for a 7:00 on Friday or on Saturday. And we had to go, and then we had to play 6 more periods to save your season. So the pressure of all of that, especially when you lose game 1, is just immense, and you don't really recover from it. And then by the end of the weekend, you're just throwing and springing forward an hour on Saturday. It just continues. And I mean, we've been to double overtime 2 years in a row with Air Force, and last year was a 1-game knockout. Thank God this was a series, and we earned that series. But I will tell you, we haven't had success on anything that's gone past 1 overtime. We've been really good in 1 overtime, but we're 0-3 in double overtime, and it's stressful. And then you got to recover. So I think one of the things that you'll see as playoffs start diving into the final 8 and final 4 and all that, cramping and recovering. Like there were some guys that I had to take that were really short shifts because they were cramping, and we had to do everything in our power as far as protein shakes and food, and we salt that you can put on your hand and lick to keep the salt. Eating pretzel sticks in between periods because of the salt that stops cramping. I mean, there was just so much that went into preparation when you have a long game like that. I mean, I think what was the one game, was it a couple years ago that went a long time? They've talked about potentially stopping games now because of how long games go.
Well, and that's why we get the extra day now in the regionals, so that if something goes in overtime, what was that, Minnesota, Duluth, and North Dakota, was that the game? Yeah.
was a regional
so 5
final, but yeah,
overtimes there.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So with all of that, let me ask you one more thing before we go on to the semifinal fields. How do you start coaching overtime? Do you immediately start in looking at shorter shifts and things like that right from the get-go, or do you kind of ease into that as the overtime goes on?
Well, I think it just depends on your team. It depends on how much energy you spend in that game. Like we scored twice in the last 6 minutes to tie it. I mean, I saw the RIT Holy Cross. They had to score 3 goals in the third period to tie it. I think it just depends on your mood, how much energy you've spent, what your gut feeling is. Like we expended a lot of energy, so I had to go with 4 lines pretty quickly, just to keep guys going and fresh. And then when we got farther and farther into overtime with the cramping and stuff, you have to really manage your bench, and you got to watch your players. And there were some guys that I got a guy that actually said, I'm not ready to go yet. And you never hear that from players, but they don't want to put, that's where it becomes so selfless. They don't want to, even though they could be one of your best players, they don't want to be that guy that costs the team. So I think people are really cognizant of their shifts. They change at the right time. They don't try to do unnecessary stuff because you don't want to be that guy that costs the team. So I think that your question is very valid, but it's a balancing act. I'll tell you that for sure.
Hey, Derek, I want to ask you, you mentioned the quick turnaround for another game, but what is that like physically on the players, and what were you guys doing as a staff? You mentioned in-game trying to get them solved, but the amount of calories they probably burn, they must have a way that they need to replace those calories. Was there anything specifically you did with there?
Well, I mean, we have more food than we have more food to try to get them going. One of the things our trainer actually literally read from AI exactly what to have to replace all the calories, what to have as far as meals go. At that time, it becomes more carbs than protein. Yeah. And obviously more carbs for me is not a good thing, but it's more carbs. It's more, like I said, salt. It's more just what you're putting in your body. You don't want to be too full during a game, but I do all of our team shopping. I like that. I've got a Costco membership. I had to go back again I thought I loaded up for enough for 3 games. I had to go back on Saturday morning for game 2 and 3 food. And if we wouldn't have got game 3, we would have just had a lot of extra stuff for the locker room for spring workouts.
Well, there's an off-season video project there, shopping with Schooley. That would be fun to watch you go through Costco and load up the cart.